Its presence fills the air. You can see it in the lush, verdant paddocks. Hear its whisper in the trees. The potential for greatness, it's part of the land. This is where stories begin, where first steps lead to thrilling finishes, where legendary sires like Nureyev, Sham, and Successful Appeal made their mark. Walmack Farm. It's more than just land. It's a legacy.
The main philosophy of Centennial Partnerships is to mitigate risk through diversification, and that includes a group of horses and a group of people. But we don't want to take away the experience and the fun of the sport, so we limit the number of people in each partnership. We try to make the experience for people as exciting and as memorable as possible.
Okay, well, welcome to the 2025 Virtual Thoroughbred Owner Conference Series. I'm Gary Falter with the Jockey Club, and this is our sixth panel in the series of 10 panels that take place this year. And our full schedule can be found on our website, ownerview.com, where you'll find the dates and the times of each of the monthly webinars. Now, today's panel topic is buying at the sales, whether it's in-person or digital sales. And as the panel progresses, please use the Q&A feature to submit questions for the topics that we're covering. And at the end of the session, we'll try to get to as many questions as time allows. But before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to recognize our sponsors, starting with our presenting sponsors, Bessemer Trust, Keeneland, and Stoll Keenan Ogden. And our panel sponsors today are Centennial Farms and Walmack Farm. And the Q&A sponsor is West Point Thoroughbreds. Our sincere thank you to all the sponsors for their continued support of thoroughbred ownership and helping us offer these webinars at no charge to you. So a sincere thank you, sponsors. Okay, so next I'd like to introduce today's panelist, starting with Conrad Bandroff. Welcome, Conrad. He is the Vice President of Denali Stud. And next, I'd like to introduce the Director of Sales for Keeneland, Cormac Bresnick. Welcome, Cormac.
Thanks, Gary.
Next, owner of DJ Stable, very successful stable, John Green. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
And the Director of Digital Sales with Fasig-Tipton, Leif Aaron. Welcome, Leif.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay, so let's get started. So in recent years, we're seeing more and more horses going through digital sales than the traditional method of scheduled in-person sales. So today's panel, we're going to talk about the elements of the in-person sales and online sales so our audience can have a much better idea of the benefits and some of the possible drawbacks for both. So since more horses are purchased in the in-person sales and more specifically at yearling sales, we're going to start off by talking about that process, okay? So we'll start off with the first question that I have, okay, guys? What are the first steps in selecting horses to bid on at a public auction? Does the process start by reviewing the full catalog, or does the process start when you get to the sale? So John, you buy a lot of horses. Why don't we start with you on just the process that you follow in selecting horses?
Yeah, no, Gary, I appreciate it. I remember when I took a public speaking course in college, and the professor said, "When does your presentation start?" And most of us said, "Well, when you step on the dais and you start to talk." And he said, "No, it starts with all the preparation you do in advance." And the same thing holds true with actual brick and mortar sales. We get the catalogs digitally almost a month in advance, and you can still get the hard paper back copies that I still use when I walk around the sales. But more importantly, we're looking at pedigrees. We're looking at what's going on in the family. Are there any updates? We're looking to see if there's any value that we can unearth by looking at, the videos of the horses walking, or any preliminary information we can do in advance is really so important, because by the time you set foot on the sales grounds, whether it's Fasig or Keeneland, you are getting hit by so many different things. It's almost sensory overload. And not only that, but your time to look at these horses, vet them out, and then bid on them and make these really crucial decisions. Get the timeline gets smaller and smaller as you get further into the sale. So I would say, Gary, that for every 100 horses that's in a catalog, we're probably putting in 100 hours of due diligence in advance.
Okay. So at some point, John, you create a short list. I mean, it just finished the Saratoga sale. They had the select sale and the New York bred sale, and it's not 4,000 horses like we have coming up at Keeneland. How do you go about creating that short list? I mean, you talked about looking at the pedigrees in advance. I mean, do you go to the barns and look at every single horse?
For a boutique sale like the one that or the two that just completed up in Saratoga, yeah, we'll basically have somebody, either a representative of our group or me personally, look at every single horse that's on the grounds. And we do that for two reasons. One is because we want to make sure that there's no stone unturned, and that we're not missing an opportunity for a horse that maybe is a little bit lighter pedigreed, but is an outstanding athlete. So we want to make sure that we actually physically look at every single horse that's there. The other reason is these horses show up later on, and they show up in claiming races. They show up in breeding stock sales if they're fillies down the road. So we like to have a book on every single horse that goes through public auction, and just compare notes and see what they look like as a yearling versus a 2-year-old, versus a broodmare when they're 4 or 5 years old, and just make sure that we didn't miss anything throughout the process. And that helps us when we go and we make our what I call a ring list, which means once we've looked at all the horses, we vetted them out, the ones that we like. We have an idea of what they're going to sell for, and then we actually sit at the, and get ready to bid. That's our ring list. And we want to make sure that we have all the detailed information that we possibly can on those horses, so there's no surprises. Because, Cormac and Leith will tell you, when you get into an auction situation, they purposely are trying to make it so you're making decisions very quickly, and you're making it more on emotion, and let that get swept up. And Conrad's smiling because there's nothing better for him as a consignor, I think, than having two people who are emotionally attached to a horse that goes in the ring, and then values kind of go out the window. So we try to make it so we don't get caught up in that rush and that psychological warfare.
So it sounds like you go from a catalog to a short list to what you call a ring list.
Correct. Okay. And that process takes a long time. Thankfully, at the Saratoga sales, you're granted the time to do that. You have 4 or 5 days from the time the horses are shown for the first time until they go into the ring. By the time you get to whether it's a Keeneland September sale or a Fasig October sale, where there's just volumes of horses there, you don't have that luxury anymore. And Gary, at that point, that's when you really have to go through the catalog and say, regardless of if this horse was the next Secretariat, I wouldn't look at it because of fill in the blank, because of the pedigree, because of the stallion, and sometimes it's because of the people who are consigning the horse. There's good and bad. There's good and bad owners. There's good and bad trainers. There's good and bad consigners. And I think you have to be conscious of the fact that you have to look at every piece of information on that catalog page, from the top, which is who's representing the horse, all the way to the bottom, which is which races they're eligible for. And every piece of information that's on that catalog is crucial and critical, and should be looked at and considered before you raise your hand to bid on a horse.
Okay, great. So Conrad, as a successful consignor, why don't you talk about the efforts that take place there at your consignment to have successful showings there at the sales ground. So why don't you talk about that process and what you go through?
Yeah, absolutely. It starts with, we select horses for particular sales, whether it be, for the Saratoga sale, or obviously, New York bred sale. That's a little bit different because we're that's a state bred program, obviously, but we're very careful with what we take up for the select sale for Saratoga. We only take up half a dozen, or this year we had 7 horses, and we really kind of hand pick them because, as John mentioned, buyers have a lot of time up there, so they have the opportunity to come back and look at a horse 4th, 5th, 6th time, and so these yearlings have to withstand a very high level of scrutiny. And so you have to have a horse that can withstand that and can hold up to someone coming a 4th or 5th time and liking a horse as much that time as they do the first time they come. Whereas when you get into the real meat and bones of Keeneland September and you're in book 3 or 4, the buyers don't have as much time, and they really have to. There are so many horses to get through. They have to make decisions faster because they don't have the luxury of being able to come back through and look at that horse a second, or a 3rd or 4th or 5th time. They have to make decisions faster, and they then have to move faster because they have such a high volume of horses to get through. So we have to. So you approach your strategy for selecting horses are different for both sales, and we get the horse up there. And the other big aspect when we're approaching a boutique sale like Saratoga is, we're asking a lot of a yearling to go up there, leaving the farm for the first time, traveling up across the country, putting it through a big mental strain, and we're looking for a horse that can withstand that mental and physical load, because that's a big strain on them. So sometimes you get surprised and you have a horse that you think isn't going to turn a hair, and they get up there, and the best ones can handle it, and sometimes a horse will surprise you and not perform as well as you would have liked. But a big aspect of selecting a horse for that kind of sale is can they mentally handle it, because it is a big strain. But a big part when you shifting to a big sale that's going to have over 4,000 horses like Keeneland September is the selection into where that yearling is going to be placed in the sale. And we work alongside the team at Keeneland, Cormac, Tony Lacey, and their inspection team of trying to balance not only the pedigree but the physical of the yearlings, and place the yearlings where we think they're going to best fit in the sale, starting from book 1 all the way through to the end of the sale. We call September the marathon. It's the largest yearling sale in the world, and that's where we take our crop to market. That's where we sell the majority of our yearlings every year. So
okay. So Cormac, that segues well into my next question about, with 2-year-old training sales, there's much to see on a horse, but with yearlings, really it's their walk, their conformation, maybe how they present themselves. Is that really enough for a potential buyer to identify a potential athlete? I mean, the walk and their conformation and how they just handle themselves?
Well, that's the best thing about this game is there's no recipe to success, right? This is an industry where experts are, improve themselves every day and every sale. You always learn something in the horse industry. And like Conrad referenced, horses will go somewhere and surprise you. You think you've got steady minded horses going to sale, and they might wash out a little bit, or vice versa. So, there is a tremendous amount of information available from from seeing the horse on its pedigree, its conformation, its walk. The walk is a 4-beat gait like the gallop, and so that's basically why we don't trot horses. We don't jog horses because you don't really see how they move in the sense of how they would move at a gallop. You see each foot hit the ground individually at a walk, much like they do at a gallop, just obviously at a much slower pace. So it is a pretty good indicator, but obviously you see good walking horses that don't run and vice versa all the time. And then you can judge the walk based on the pedigree too, because there are some sire lines and some stallions that don't throw a horse that walks particularly well, but people learn to overcome that because that's what that sire line produces. So a lot of this is something that kind of comes clear with experience and year on year. And then there's all the veterinary information as well, which you might want to, we'll get into later. So this is, something like the Keeneland September sale is a lot like the NFL draft. You're looking at middle schoolers, you're trying to project juveniles into an athletic career. They're, May foaled yearlings are, say, 16 months of age. You've got some January foaled yearlings that are 25% older, so there's a real range in terms of what they are at the time you see them versus what they're going to become. So I think, it's something you just have to weigh the package. I don't think you can get too fixated on one thing. It's not all the walk. It's not all the size of the overstep or the length of the cannon bone or any of those things. It's just, you have to look at the horse, how it fits its pedigree, how it moves, how athletic it is. And at the end of the day, the intangibles, its heart, its desire, its will to win, its will to withstand training, and all of that, its competitive spirit. Those are the things that are often going to separate them at the end of the day.
So John, do you have a preference on buying yearlings versus 2-year-olds?
Gary, it's a great question. It kind of wavers depending on where the value is. In the past few years, so many people were breeding to market, and they were breeding, and selling as yearlings. That you can unearth, certain horses, and as Cormac alluded to, it's not just the physical ability or the looks, it's the intangibles. And as 2-year-olds, you could see the intangibles a little bit more because they're a little bit more developed. They're more developed physically, they're more developed mentally, and they've gone further along in their training process. So there's a little bit less guesswork in that sense that comes out of it. So to go back to your original question, Gary, we kind of fluctuate back and forth between the yearling sales and the 2-year-old sales. I think the biggest crapshoot is the weanling sales, or buying horses as weanlings. And there are a lot better people, professionals at it, that do a phenomenal job, that have a much better eye than I want to have. Conrad was saying it before the show that one of the most exciting parts of the business of this past sale were the horses that were pinhooked, that were purchased as weanlings, or we call them short yearlings, in January sale, February sale, and then developed and turned around and sold at these past 2 sales. That's an exciting part of the immediacy of return on investment. So I think, Gary, you have to look at it as there's no hard and fast rule for us. We look at where we think there's an undervalued asset and try to purchase it there, because we can't, even though we're big, we can't outbid these partnerships or these conglomerates anymore.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So Leif, you've been patiently waiting. I want to jump into some digital sales questions. So why don't we start off with, we talked about the selection process and the examination process on the in-person sales. How does that work for an online virtual sale? How is a person able to review those pedigrees, review the confirmation? Because that's a whole different world.
Yeah, it doesn't. I think it's a little different because, it doesn't take as long to get through the amount of horses that we're currently offering than it would, like Keeneland September getting through 4,000 to go through those catalogs. But, basically, the easiest way to put it is you sit in the comfort of your own home, you pop open the iPad and or computer or phone or whatever you choose to do, and you basically register to bid for that particular sale. And the reason you would register to bid is so you can see all the information that we kind of keep behind a wall for participants. And then you can look at all the pedigrees, you can look at the PPs, you can sort it by sire, you can sort it by location, you can sort it by sold as type, whether it be weanling, yearling, broodmare, whatever you're looking for, racehorse. It's really, and then, you know, as soon as the catalog's available, you're able to bid, so you can get into the action immediately. And so it's very, there's a numerous different ways you could take on a catalog for a digital sale, and you know, and you don't have to make travel plans, and you don't have to get a hotel, and you don't have to you know, put in the work like John was talking about ahead of some of these in-person sales. It's basically participating when you want, how you want, where you want.
Okay. So is it possible for somebody that's interested in some horses on the digital side to actually physically go view the horse? I mean, is that an option for them?
That's one of the conditions of the sale, is that all horses that are being offered on the digital sale have to be available for inspection. So if John's looking at horses on the website and he lands on one, you know, he can send his representative to that farm to look at the horse in person. You know, we have that happen. We have people that just buy off pictures and videos. You know, you can kind of do it any way you want to.
Okay. So Conrad, do you consign on the digital side as well as in-person sales?
We do. Yeah, we represent and sell on the digital space as well, and you know, we've found that it's become a very useful tool. I think what the digital space has done is it has added instant liquidity to the marketplace. It has allowed people to, you know, capitalize on a race, whether it's a horse that's won a race, or they have a half sister, or they have a mare. You know, with a big update, they can strike while the iron's hot, and it's allowed for instant trade and for, you know, more consistent trade. And I think especially in terms of, you know, horses and training, it is really kind of revolutionized how we trade horses and training. And, you know, we used to have to wait for the July horses races age sale, or we had to wait for November to have sales to sell horses in training, and now we can sell them monthly. And I think you see that there is constant demand for horses in training throughout the year. And I know John, you know, they're very active in the digital sphere with both on the buy and on the sell end, and you know, they really, you know, utilize that as a platform to move horses on that maybe don't fit their stable. And you know, I know he can speak to that, because I think they've really been able to utilize that to their advantage.
John, you want to add to that? Oh, you're muted. Need to unmute, John.
There we go. Usually most people prefer for me to be muted, but no, they you know, the advent of the online sale is exactly what Conrad said. It gives people an opportunity to trade and liquidate their assets. And my background's on the financial planning side, so I'm used to trading, you know, on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, and there's immediacy. And what the digital sale has offered is, you know, this opportunity for liquidity. And we use it as a trading option. So we've sold horses, Leaf, I don't remember the exact number, but we had a horse win first time out a couple of years ago named Mensa, and sold him for $700,000. And then later on in the year, bought a mare off of Hillendale called Eileen's Dream for $600,000. And the resulting foal of that horse was offered at the select sale just last week. We bought a Justify filly in March for $190,000 and sold her in the brick and mortar sale, the select part, for $400,000. So I think it gives people an opportunity to move horses on in a good way, in a sense that, you know, this is their maximum value, so I'm going to try it. And it also gives people immediacy as far as when they're gonna, when they're gonna be able to sell. The one thing that I would stress, and Conrad is too nice of a person to say this about consigners, but we went the route originally of trying to sell the horses on our own. And what we found is that when you have a professional consigner, whether it's Denali or a TaylorMade or somebody who works in that space on a regular basis, they add so much value to the equation. They can post videos, they can field phone calls, they can get photos and the veterinary work and all the things that you would normally do at a brick and mortar sale, but they're doing for you on a digital platform. And the way I justify it in my mind is if they add one more bid onto the value, onto the equation of this horse, then it's well worth having them in place. I think a trainer, some people have their trainers as the consigners. Well, they're doing 18 different things every day. It's not selling horses, and it's not to their benefit to sell that horse out of their barn for the most part. So I don't know how motivated they are to be a seller. So I'm a big advocate in leaving it to the professionals, letting them cook, letting them do what they need to do. And then hopefully they're going to get you one more bid. That's all it is as far as valuation. I think Denali's done a very good job on the digital platform as well.
Okay, great point.
I would venture to say, and just to piggyback on John a little bit, and we can get into this more, but horses that have sold with traditional consigners online, those horses bring 30% more on average than horses that are sold by just the owner. And I really think the reasoning for that is because, and I tell everybody this, but if you're buying jewelry, are you going to feel more comfortable buying it from a guy in a street corner or from a jeweler? And that's exactly what this is. These consigners have established themselves as reputable. People like doing business with them. They trust them. They trust Conrad's opinion, and they're going to call him for information on the horse, and they're going to feel better about that transaction.
Okay.
So I think, just to piggyback off what John was saying, that's the secret sauce in the digital sales.
Okay. So just to move on, Cormac and Leif, I'd like for you guys to take this question. Are there certain types of horses that you guys believe are ideal for the digital sales versus the in-person sales? So Cormac, what are your thoughts on that as far as what you would believe would be the ideal person or ideal horse for those sales?
Yeah, I think the live brick and mortar auctions, I mean, one of the big advantages is the horses are all in one place. So you can get through hundreds of horses even per day with a team, and you can really stack them against each other. You can really make a more informed decision by having them all in one place. But, there are unproven horses, weanlings, yearlings in particular, are more suited to live auction because there's an emphasis on veterinary information. There's an emphasis on getting your hands on the horse, watching them maybe repeatedly, and really getting to know the horse, because you don't have anything else to go on except what you're seeing on the shank and what's in the catalog. So, with the more proven commodities, the race horses, the mares, there's certainly more emphasis on what their form is, whether it's production record or past performances on the track. You can quantify those commodities, or if they're commodities, but you can quantify them a lot more easily. So those are more suited and tailored to a digital platform than the unproven.
Okay. Leif, what would you like to add to that?
I would say, I would agree in the weanlings and yearlings. I always thought the brick and mortar was going to be a better spot for them from day one. But, when I go back and really look at the numbers, we've sold 182 yearlings last year online, and this year alone, before yearling season's even really going, we've already sold 120 yearlings. And I still don't think it's going to be the Saratoga kind of yearlings that are getting offered on digital, but I do think there is a type of yearling that might get lost maybe a little bit in a big sale that would benefit from being on digital, where you're definitely getting more eyeballs on them. I mean, we're averaging 400 looks a horse. I say that, and then, you look back at just the Saratoga sale that just happened. That was electric. I mean, I don't think that we're going to get that kind of atmosphere online for yearlings. But I think there is a place for certain kinds of yearlings online. But I think, if I were going to look at our numbers overall, I mean, the racehorse market, we have expanded tenfold from what it was previously. And I would say the horse that's best suited for digital would be a horse of racing age. And that's it's wild how much that has expanded, and that was a market that really wasn't there before. And I think it's made racehorse owners like John see, hey, if I get a horse, even if we break its maiden at a medium track, we can go and sell it, where that wasn't an option before. So yeah, I think the horse of racing age would be the perfect kind to sell online. But we sell a lot of breeding stock as well. So it's really, I mean, from 2.6 million all the way down to $2,500. Like we're selling all types on there.
And Gary, if I could just jump in for 1 second, just to emphasize what Leif is saying. Nowadays, if you want to try to buy a horse at the racetrack, you're claiming a horse. Most of these races now, where you're claiming a horse, you're in there with 4, 5, 6 other people that are dropping the slip. And then even if you win the battle and you win the shake and you get the horse, there's no guarantee you're going to keep the horse, because good or bad, there's such an emphasis on on how safe and sound these horses are, where you may not even have the option. I know Kentucky has this, but you may not have the option in other states where if you claim a horse and you want to keep it and the vet says, no, you have to turn it back, you have to turn it back. I think Kentucky has a check the box where on the claim slip you can say, regardless of how this horse comes back, I want to keep it, primarily for breeding stock. So the advantage of going on a digital platform and having your vet have the opportunity to take his time, his or her time, look at the x-rays that are provided, look at the scope report that's provided, and in essence, vet your horse out before you bid. That adds value, because then if you're the winning bid at the drop of the hammer, that is your horse.
Well, that kind of segues into my next question about the vet report, the repository, when selecting horses to buy. So maybe Conrad, why don't you talk about that on the brick and mortar in-person sales, how that works, so that the audience can understand better how the veterinarian plays a role in that examination process.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. So, and for whether it's for yearlings or a horse in training, they'll have a full set of X-rays taken, as well as a scope of their airway. More and more these days, video scopes are taken and put in the repository, which limits the number of times that the scope is physical. The horse is physically scoped at the barn, and the vets have become very accepting of the video scopes in the repository, which has been a great development over the last few years, because it has really limited the number of times that especially the yearlings are getting scoped at the barns, which has been, it has been a really, I think, a great move forward. But it's a full set of X-rays, 36 views, and there is also, we have a report at the barn for buyers to see. That's a summary of the findings, that is a summary from the consignor, or the consignor's veterinarian, our veterinarian, of his opinion of the interpretation of the X-ray, which the buyer can view. I always tell people that my recommendation is to always find a veterinarian and that they have a relationship with, or start a relationship with, and then have them review the X-rays and get their opinion, because every vet has their own opinion, and there are some of those reports that are more liberal in their interpretations than others. And I always tell my veterinarian that I want him to be very, very critical when he writes those reports, because I want to know if a horse has a problem or has a finding that a buyer's vet is going to be critical of, because I need to know on the selling side if a horse vets or not, because it doesn't do me any good to think a horse is passing the vet and then come to find out that, John has vetted the horse, and I'm like, great, we got DJ stable on this horse, and then they don't bid, and I go, John, you guys didn't bid on that horse, and John says, well, he failed the vet, and so we it's always important to know where you are, and the X-ray reports are important, but you also have to be careful because some of those reports are can be more accurate than others.
Okay, so Cormac, with 4,000 horses going through the Keeneland September sale, that repository's got to be a pretty busy place. Can you talk a little bit about how that functions during such a large sale?
Yeah, it is a big process. So it's something that's been really improved over the years in terms of digital X-rays, ease of upload for the vet clinics and the vets to get the X-rays to us. Like Conrad said, with 36 views, we'll have almost 4,700 yearlings entered in the sale this year. It's a tremendous undertaking. There's a company called Asteris that's a global veterinary information company that services small animal clinics and is also in the large animal space with us and some other sales companies, and with Haggard Equine Hospital and so on. And that's the interface that receives and houses all of the veterinary information. So the video endoscopes are a big thing as well. And then other certifications that have to be disclosed, like a recent colic surgery or an invasive joint surgery or something like that. So this is a platform where now it's digital. Vets can log on, they can go to a HIP number, and they can see all of the relevant veterinary information and do it from their truck or from a barn on the grounds or anything else, from the repository here on a desktop computer. So okay. It's a huge undertaking, but to echo what Conrad said, I mean, I think the veterinary information is important, but really it's a tool for the buyer to make an informed decision. There's no right or wrong answer in a lot of ways, with it. It's an interpretation. And so the importance of the client vet, the buyer, prospective buyer's relationship with his or her vet is more than important. The veterinary reports, like Conrad said, those are provided by the seller's vet. So they have to be treated with at least a certain amount of caution, or they should be interpreted by your own vet as a buyer, because sometimes, it might just be mild sesamoiditis, or it could be, lucency in a front ankle or something like that, or it could be a fragment that's extra articular. It's not even in the joint. And it looks like scary words on a page when you look at the report, but in actual fact, if you're not a pinhooker and you're buying a 3-year-old type that you're looking forward to maybe racing in the fall of its 2-year-old year, and you're more than happy to give it 30 or 60 extra days before breaking or before stepping up its training over the winter, that's how you might get a discount. So having that relationship with your vet and just having a sort of a real world interpretation of what all that information is telling you is critical, because it wouldn't reflect on the seller if something is written a certain way or not. It's really, how does it affect you, your risk tolerance, your plans for your horse, and what you're hoping to achieve.
Okay, well, that's great to know that the veterinarians can view all that remotely. Mm-hmm. That's a nice benefit. So Leif, we've talked about the in-person sales, but how does this repository, the X-rays, the vet report play out in digital sales? Are those required? Are they just explain to the audience how that works?
It's exactly the same as an in-person sale. There's no difference. We use Asteris also for digital sales. The vets will shoot the X-rays at the racetrack. They'll write an opinion, and that opinion is in the vet report, which is available to registered bidders. We utilize the video scopes as much as we can. I tell people with expensive horses, it's important to have video scopes because their own vets will want to look at those. I tell people all the time, I think the vet report is only a tool, that you should really have your own vet examine them. And if you fall in love with a horse, and, I would say get a couple opinions from vets. I think that's very important. Any of the problems that we've had post-sale on digital are due to people not vetting the horses themselves. And in some cases, not even looking at the reports and maybe not knowing they were there. But yeah, that's X-rays are required. The video endoscopes are highly encouraged, but scopes are required to scope report. And that's on all young horses and horses of racing age, except for which is it's unique to digital 3-in-1 packages. So that's mares selling with foals at foot. The foals that sell at foot don't have to be X-rayed because those bones are not fully developed, and to shoot an X-ray would be pointless. But yeah, it's exactly the same as an in-person sale.
Okay, very good. John or Conrad, you want to add anything to the whole repository vet report?
No, I think it's been covered. The main thing that I would stress is that just like anything else, you have to know the attorney. You have to know the veterinarian you're working with. There are some veterinarians that are very clinical and very kind of CYA. They want to make sure that they tell you every pimple on every ass of every horse that they look at. But you have to know what you can live with. And that's really the relationship of the veterinarian with the trainer is, okay, don't tell me, kind of everything that you're seeing. Just tell me what I should be worried about. And we have a code in when we're looking at horses that if the veterinarian says the horse is good to go, it doesn't mean it's perfect. Doesn't mean that its X-rays are 100%, exactly the way that you want it to be. It just means that I know that your trainer will be able to live with this horse and work with this horse and not have an issue. So you just, again, like anything else, you have to understand that there's no universal definition. It's all kind of up to each vet's perception, and they have to translate that to your trainer for your trainer to know whether or not they want to take on that responsibility.
Okay. So audience, we've got
I
about
couldn't
another
agree
15.
more with.
Go ahead, Conrad.
I couldn't agree more with John there. It depends on what the buyer's program is, what they're trying to do, and their risk tolerance. Someone who's looking to pinhook a yearling to go to a 2-year-old sale is going to have a different risk tolerance than an end user racing client that is going to have the ability to give a horse time and is going to be a little bit more accepting of some findings than others. So it all comes down to what is someone's goals, what are they trying to do, and I like to tell some people that you should sometimes look at vet findings as equated to a traffic light. Is it a green light? Is it a yellow light? Is it a red light? And I think that's, some vets do it like that. And I think that's a good way to approach it. There's, you don't have to, horse doesn't have to be just completely clean NSA down the page. Because if you're only buying a horse that's completely clean, well, I hate to tell you, those might just be the slow horses. Because, the horses that are out there running around in the field and racing each other, those are probably the ones that have the sesamoiditis and are laying down the bone and are being competitive, and there's it's they don't have to be completely clean, and the ones that have findings, a lot of times they're not clinical and they have no idea that they have them. So
okay. So audience, we have about another 15 minutes with the panelists. So if you have any questions for them, just submit your questions with that Q&A button. You'll see it on your screen. So a few more questions, guys. So we know there's select sales at the Keeneland sale, at Fasig-Tipton, Saratoga. Those are select sessions. But are there any select sales in the digital world? Or is it basically a catch-all for any horse that wants to go in those sales, Leif?
It's kind of funny you say that, because to some degree, all digital sales are select, in that, there's some horses that just don't fit. And I'll explain to, the potential sellers that horse doesn't fit in here for whatever reason. The other thing that we do digitally that we don't really do as much in person is that we make sure that the seller's expectations monetarily are in line with what we think the horse is worth. And if those two things are out of whack, we don't take the horse. and because it doesn't do anybody any good for us to have, you know, a site full of RNAs. So that, I think that's why our clearance rate is so high on digital. And I think that's also why we have such a large buying base on digital, is because the horses are getting sold is the bottom line there.
Okay.
So, you know, the other sort of select sale that we have would be a flash sale.
Well, that was going to be my next question. I've heard that term. Explain what that is.
So a flash sale would be like an immediate, whether a horse broke its maiden really impressively, or maybe a broodmare had a foal that won a big race, or maybe a half sibling won a big race, and the person wanted to capitalize on that immediately. Then we could have a flash sale, which means we could immediately put up an auction for one horse, where it would say, you know, like for instance, John sold Mensa. The horse broke its maiden impressively. We put it on the site the next week. All we had to do was get the vetting done, pictures and videos. We got all that up there. We did advertising, and we had a plethora of people in there bidding on the horse. And, you know, with the international participation that we're getting online, you know, we're able to sell a lot of horses to the Middle East, which is great. It's basically people from all over the world can look at the horses. We don't have as many flash sales because, I mean, John's a pretty realistic seller as far as he looks at it like a business. So he has an idea of what the horses are worth, and, you know, he's not starstruck, I guess, when he does get a good one. So, you know, we'll have those, but that's what has to fall into line is a realistic seller. So we have a lot of people that contact us about doing flash sales, but I think that their expectations are not always in line with what the horse is worth. And that's an important thing for us to be selective about, is what we're offering in a flash sale. And we've started to figure that out. I mean, we did Sullivan Angel for 2.6 million. We've done some other high profile racehorses. We've done a stallion, standing at Walmack, one of the sponsors of this. So, you know, it's been a great tool to have the flash sale in your back pocket. But now with us having 10 sales a year scheduled, there really is always a time to get your horse into a sale. So it's really a special occasion for a flash sale. It's something to watch, and it's entertaining too, because, you know, it's fun. It's fun to sell a good horse.
Okay. So Cormac, while we're talking about select sales, you've got the Keeneland September sale coming up, book one. I assume those are all select horses. Just talk about the importance of having a session or a couple sessions with those top horses.
Yeah, there are a couple of ideas behind it. So we'll have essentially six books, and book 5A and 5B comprise the end of the sale, but each book will be 2 sessions, 2 days. And book one is the cream of the crop. There are about 360 or 370 horses cataloged to that book. And those horses will sell in a shorter session from starting at 1 p.m. to about 6 p.m. each day on Monday and Tuesday, the 8th and 9th of September. Those horses are housed in a smaller group of barns. They're kind of in a localized zone. They're a little more loosely stabled, meaning there isn't a horse in every stall in those barns, so there's a little more show space. Everything's a little bit more relaxed. There's a bit more time for people to get through the horses, and it's more of a social atmosphere. So that's kind of what comprises the most select part of the sale. And the reason that's set up that way is when people come in to buy horses and the principals, we're trying to get more principals back to the sale, because the sale itself is a fantastic event. I mean, it's a spectacle. It's fun, it's energy, it's highly social, it's a lot of work for everybody, but it really is an event in and of itself. And so we want people to come back and enjoy that. I mean, I was here when, not at Keeneland, but I was here in Lexington when the July sale was still active. And I mean, that was a really special time of year as well. So that's the focus there, is to get the best horses in front of the people that come in. So we want to make sure that they like what they see and they can buy what they like. And that's the goal there. It creates the immediate start to the sale, because it's got 10 more sessions after that, and we need to create that momentum, create the fun and atmosphere that'll carry forward. And then book two is the next tier of horses. The median price in book one the last couple of years has been about $450,000. So half of them bring that much or more. In book two, the median drops to sort of 200, 210, but they're still extremely good horses and a lot of good physicals. And there are more horses in those days. It'll be close to about 385 in a session in those days. It'll start at 11 a.m. and that'll be a little more up tempo, a little busier, but again, it gets busier again after the dark day. So Friday of that week will be a dark day where it suspends the sale. It gives people a chance to reset, and it gives all the sellers in book three at least 2 days to show the horses as the pace picks up and things happen a little quicker through the rest of the sale.
Okay. So I've got a couple more questions. I want to jump into horses and training sales. So it's been a new trend. You see horses in training at the brick and mortar in-person sales. We see a lot of those horses in the digital sales. So maybe you guys can talk about the pros and cons of trying to buy horses that are in training during the in-person sales or during the digital sales. So what are some of those pros and cons either way? So Conrad, why don't we start with you on the horses in training and just the pros and cons of the in-person versus the digital?
I mean, I think the pro of the brick and mortar is if the horse has a really good physical, you get to showcase it, and certainly depending on the time of year, if it's November and or the July sale coming into the the summer season, people have options. They can take a horse up to this, they can target the Saratoga meet, they can target certain campaigns with horses. So the brick and mortar sales for the right type of horse can, you can maximize a horse's value that way. But I think what we've really found with the horses in training in the digital sphere is one of the big pros is the horse doesn't have to leave the barn. You don't have to ship it into the sale grounds. You don't have your high sale expenses. You don't have to, pay a sale day rate. You don't have to, have all your ancillary costs for selling the horse that you would when you ship it in for a brick and mortar sale. And then, it can then, sell on the digital space, and then, either get sold within the barn or sold out of the barn, and, can walk across the racetrack to its new barn and change hands. So, I think you're finding that, it can kind of really streamline the process. And,
Okay.
I think that the people have become very accepting that. And I think one of the reasons that the digital space lends itself so well to selling horses and training and race horses is, their value can be so determined by their form. And, certainly horses that, have current form and are running, that information and their past performances and their speed figures and, their rags, all that's available. And that, that allows people to determine what their value is.
Okay. So on a horse and training sale, are there any pitfalls that buyers need to watch out for? And are there any guarantees or any assurances when you buy a horse in training versus a young horse, a yearling or a weanling? So John, you've been on both ends of that.
Yeah, and Gary, when you say a training sale, you're talking about the horses of racing age sale versus the 2-year-old sale?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, I mean, Leaf and Cormac would be better to talk about the legal side of what the guarantees are. But we've opted to sell our racehorses on the digital platform. And it's for a lot of the reasons that Conrad mentioned. I have to believe that a big reason why we've gone that route is that horses are creatures of habit. And if I don't have to take them out of their barn, out of their stall, away from their groom, and take them out of their surroundings and still have the horse be able to train every day, because as good as our clearance rate has been, and it's been, 4 out of 5 horses that we sell on the digital platform have actually changed hands. You are going to get horses that aren't going to bring the market, or the market's not going to bring what you want for the horse. So for us to avoid having to ship a horse from Canada or Florida to Kentucky, get them out of their rhythm, out of their profile, away from the people and the horses that they're used to being around, and ask them to do something they haven't done since they were yearlings, which is walk a bunch of times. These horses are used to going to the track every day and training, and now you're asking them after a long ship to come into the whole new situation, and then on top of that, they're not going to the track every day. They're going to be, they're going to be pent up. They're athletes. They're used to training. So it's a lot to ask for. And then in this day and age now, where we're getting horses that are coming in to different racetracks, and they have diseases. Sometimes they have strangles, they have maybe hepatitis, whatever it is, herpes, and you could potentially shut down your entire barn because you've shipped the horse, had it catch a contagious disease and bring it back. Then that totally hurts your entire race program. Mark Casse couldn't run the favorite in a grade 1 because his barn was quarantined, because the horse wasn't under his care, but a horse came in to that barn and unfortunately tested positive. So I think if you can avoid all of those pitfalls and still have your horse stay in training, and Leaf knows we've entered horses in sales, and an extra comes up on the overnight, and we want to run the horse if the horse was in Kentucky, I can't run it. And if there's a chance for us to make money and increase the value of that horse, then I'm leaving money on the table. So we've gone 180 degrees from the brick and mortar for race horses, and we solely do it on a digital platform now.
Okay, so Cormac and Leaf, horses in training, what type of assurances does a buyer have when they want to purchase one of those horses, if any?
There are plenty of assurances that are built in. So again, when we have a brick and mortar horse and training sale, you have all of the same radiographic views, you have all the same veterinary information. You also, if you see something suspicious or that you want to double check before the horse leaves the grounds, and within 24 hours at the end of the session, you can x-ray that joint if it's an ankle that's swelled up or something like that. If the x-rays do not reflect the x-rays that were in the repository, then that horse can be returnable. And there are drug testing provisions as well, to test for 4 major classes of therapeutic medications and illicit medications that you can avail yourself of at any sale, not just the horses and training sale. So those can result in the return of a horse as well. So there are, the conditions of sale are, fully enforced, and they're pretty well means tested over the stress tested over many decades. So they're quite long. It's quite a long document, but there are a lot of protections built in for buyers. I'm happy to answer specific questions from the audience by email after.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. So Leaf, I got a question specifically for you, and then I got one last question. Talk about the bidding process during a digital sale. We kind of understand how it works at a live sale where the horse is in the ring and you nod or you raise your hand or give some kind of signal. How does that work in the digital world?
So as soon as the sale goes live, the sale will be up for 5 days. It usually starts on a Thursday and closes on a Tuesday. But as soon as the bidding goes live, you can bid, or as soon as the catalog goes live, you can bid. The bidding's available. It's a little easier as a buyer to buy online, because you really get an idea over that time what the horse is going to bring, because they'll slowly creep up to what they'll end up, and people can process that, or they can come up, oh, I see why this horse is bringing this much, or it's less intimidating for somebody to go on and to be able to click over those 5 days. And then at the end of the auction, if you bid within the last minute, bidding extends out a minute. So no one's going to get closed out. It's by trying to throw a last minute bid in at the end. It always extends out for a minute. And that's plenty of time. I know, I was talking to Carrie Brogdon about it, and she said, I love it because, I'll call my partners and say, maybe we should go a couple more bids, and they'll discuss it in that minute. And I think it makes the horses bring their maximum value, because you're not scaring people off with the make a decision right now or you're out sort of situations. And I think people feel a lot better about their purchases without having the buyer's remorse of saying, golly, I wish I wouldn't have. They get sucked into that. And that, in that same vein, I mean, Fasig-Tipton's brick and mortar and digital. So, when you come to our November sale and we're selling all those grade 1 winning fillies, that's the kind of atmosphere you want. And it's all professional buyers that are comfortable with an auctioneer, comfortable with a bid spotter. And that's great. And it makes an electric atmosphere. And with digital, it's just a little slower. And it's you have time to gather your thoughts, but yeah, it's
recommend not bidding on your cell phone on the golf course.
Yeah. Conrad and I have ran into that. I've had 2 cases, and I tell people all the time, when you're bidding, take it serious. Sit in front of a computer, try to be on Wi-Fi. We've sold almost 3,000 horses. We've only had 2 instances of people that felt like they had the bid and did not. One of them was in rural Montana, in the middle of nowhere, and got shut out. And the other guy was on a golf course with his buddies. And he thought he got shut out. And both times I genuinely felt terrible. And Conrad is privy to that.
I benefited from one of them. So
yeah, one of his horses he had sold. So, I mean, anytime you have an auction, in person, digital, there's always going to be somebody that's mixed up, thinks they have the bid and doesn't have the bid. I'd say it happens honestly a little less often on digital than it would in person.
Okay.
But it's a very simple process, and it doesn't take a professional to participate.
Okay. Last question. Just like to go around the horn here, guys. Just give your 30-second candid answer on what is your opinion of digital sales versus in-person sales. Do they both work? Is there room for both? Conrad, 30 seconds.
I absolutely think there's room for both. I think that there will continue to be room for both. I'm a big believer in the brick and mortar. That is still for us our biggest presence and will continue to be so. But there's no doubt that the digital space is a growing space and plays an important role, and is going to continue to grow.
Okay, John.
Yeah, there's no question that there's not only room for both, but there's room to grow for both. I think you're going to see that the sales companies have now realized that there is a market for it. Fasig has the lead right now going to the first turn, and a good lead, but I think you're going to see other opportunities that avail themselves, especially at the top end of the market. And I don't want to take words out of Cormac's mouth, but they instituted this championship or champions digital sale as well. And that's for the higher end horses that are related to horses running in the Breeders' Cup. So I think you're going to see more and more of that kind of sweet spot of in between the big sales and the flash sales, and have the upper echelon sales develop over the years as well. But there absolutely is a place for both of them.
Okay, Cormac.
I agree as well. I mean, there's definitely a place for both of them. The digital sales have the advantage of capitalizing on something immediate. The brick and mortar sales will always remain our primary focus. We've had digital sales in the past, we will again, and the championship sale is sort of a tweener, and it's an opportunity. It's supposed to be an additive sale, a sale that provides opportunity around the Breeders' Cup to new people who want to participate in the sport, or to people who want to capitalize on the chance of a Breeders' Cup event. But the brick and mortar sales, there's so much other energy and industry and collaboration and social aspect that happens around the brick and mortar sales. Thousands of people are here for Keeneland in September from all around the world every year. You get stallion deals getting done in the conference rooms. You get all this other sort of ancillary business. And so I think our focus, at least, is primarily that we want to maximize and we want to continue to grow that element of the industry, because it's a mainstay and it's got tremendous economic and industry impacts. But we're not ignoring the digital space either. And the digital space it funnels into the live sales all the time. So we have a lot of online bidding. We take bids from all over the world at the live auctions, and all that information that we're making digital on the horses, whether it's remote repository access or form figures, all of those things, they're all digital things as well. So people can bid from their phones while they're looking at the next day's horses.
Very good point. Very good point. Leaf, you want to put a bow around this?
Yeah, I agree with everyone. I think that, Fasig-Tipton at least is going to continue to service both ends of the market. We're going to continue to work for our customers and offer them every opportunity we can to have success, and whether it be on the buying end or the selling end. I look at the digital sales, and between 2023 and 2024, we grew over 300%. So there's absolutely space for digital sales to grow. It has not hurt our in-person sales. It's been a lot of fun for me being able to be on the leading edge of the digital sales and helping people and helping breeders, and it's helping them to do things more efficiently and helping buyers. I mean, we get 30 people every digital sale that have never bought a horse at Fasig-Tipton. So that's exciting, and that's great for the entire industry. There's room for both, and we're just excited to be able to service this end of the market.
Okay, well, that wraps up our panel discussion. So we're going to take about 30 seconds here, and we're going to move into our Q&A session. We're going to take a moment here to hear from our Q&A sponsor, West Point Thoroughbreds, while I sort through the questions, and then we'll get to your questions here in just a moment. So we'll go ahead and watch that ad from West Point, and I'll be right back. All right. Okay, first question in the queue. Why scope a young, unraced sale horse? So, Cormac, you guys are in that business. Why is that even necessary on a very young horse?
That's a great question. I mean, it's true that at yearlings, let alone weanlings, I mean, they are immature, and throats will change and can change. The hard truth for buyers is that a horse with poor airway function will not perform well. And so it is personally, I would be lenient of imperfect throats, things that are related to immature, flaccid epiglottis, or some other different things, that components of a throat that can be associated with immaturity and can be forgiven. And again, it comes down to your relationship with the vet, right? So how that vet would interpret the horse on your behalf. But it's still considered a very important part of the vetting process in animals, even though it might be misleading sometimes because it could be down to immaturity.
Well, and to add to that question, aren't there conditions of sale where if a horse doesn't pass a certain airway threshold, that they're not even permitted to be in the sale? Am I correct there?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are 7 conditions of the throat, recognized veterinary conditions of the throat, that exclude a horse from being eligible to sell.
So the fact that the horse is actually in the sale tells you that it passed those requirements.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. How do you see the effect of digital sales on claiming races? Leaf, I'll take that one.
I don't think it's affected claiming races at all, to be honest. I think if anything, what digital sales have shown is that it is a mistake to run your horse for a tag instead of selling it online, because for the most part, the horses that, they bring more is as a seller, like John said, if you have 5 people that have dropped in, to claim a horse, now you're giving those 5 people the opportunity to bid against each other, to purchase the horse with full information on vetting. And so no, as far as claiming races filling or anything like that, I don't think it has bothered them at all. But I have seen more horses that probably would have gone claiming level that have now come and sold online.
Okay. Okay. Next question. There are services that do biomechanics on young horses. How does that play out in digital sales, or does it?
It's I mean, if you, let's just say you hire a biomechanic firm to look at a yearling or a racehorse or whatever you want it to be, you can send them to wherever that horse is located, and they're allowed to, do their biomechanics on it. But yeah, that would be no different from a in-person sale. You can you can look at the horses and inspect them just like you would an in-person sale.
Okay. Okay. So if you had to choose, here's a question. If you had to choose between pedigree and conformation, which is most important? John, you want to take that one?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm gonna follow up by giving you an "it depends" answer, which I hate when I hear people say that. But I think if you're looking at a high-end horse, it needs to have all the boxes checked, because you're going to be going in there. You're going to probably overspend for what the horse's value is. As you get further down the food chain and they have less pedigree, then you have to have a stronger physical. But we rarely go the opposite way. We rarely go the really strong pedigree and really weak physical, because at the end of the day, it's not, you don't want that athlete. You can't really do a lot with it on the resale value. If in other words, we used to buy the runt of the litter filly from big pedigrees, from the Calumets and the Darby Dans and we got a Phipps, horse, and it was like the redheaded stepchild of that family. And we're like, but we're in the gene pool. And what ends up happening is that mare throws redheaded stepchildren. Like, it's just, it's just, you're not going to get that big, robust horse out of that, kind of backwards looking physical. And then on top of it, you can't resell it, because as Conrad will tell you, if it doesn't belong, it doesn't belong. So
black cats, they're black kittens.
Exactly. Yep. So I think you have to have definitely a certain amount of pedigree, but the physical has to be there, especially if you're looking to resell either the progeny of that horse or that horse itself.
Okay.
The market that we live in is a physical driven market. Mm-hmm. So you can have all the pedigree in the world, but if you have a poor physical, you're just and it's just not going to make the cut, and your value will be limited. The old expression, you can't put a saddle on a pedigree, rings true to an extent. And in this marketplace, it seems more and more that it is very much physical driven. But there's a counterbalance, and that counterbalance is for you to achieve the highest success, you have to have everything. So you have to have the physical and you have to have the pedigree to back it up. And when you have both of those things and you have the vetting, then you can have the big score. You can have the 7-figure success, and you can you can knock it out of the park.
Okay.
And Gary, just to jump on the back of what they were saying there, I think it depends on the type of horse you're buying also. They're referring, I think, to more yearling sales, but if you're in a broodmare market, it's a little different, where we don't have all the we don't have all the as strong of pedigrees as we probably used to. A lot of those have been exported from different people, and as of recently, I mean, John Secura, I think, has done a great job of harvesting really strong pedigrees, and when he goes to resell those mares at market, he's paid well for them. And I think that's because we've lost a little bit of that. So, on a broodmare portion, I think that pedigree is, from a broodmare aspect, I guess what I'm saying is, I guess the pedigree is very important, and it's getting harder to find.
Okay. I would agree with that. I think on the broodmare side, your big pedigree, people will give you a little bit more of a concession on some physical.
Okay. A couple more questions here. Are there other countries other than the U.S. conducting digital sales, or are we first to market on that?
No, Australia was kind of the pioneer in getting digital sales going, and it was mainly because they don't have a claiming system, and so and the provinces are so spread out there that it was really a pain for people to ship all their horses into a central location to have brick and mortar sales, and so I think it started flourishing with racehorses in Australia, and then eventually the breeding stock picked up and got into it. There's also digital sales that are going on in Europe between Arcana, Tattersalls, and Goffs, I think those would be the major ones and us. So it's a worldwide market for sure.
So let me add to that. Are you seeing much international interest in our digital sales?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, more and more, it's becoming increasingly, it's tough because when we're in the United States, we're in our own backyard. We know everybody. We know most of the players. The ones we don't know, we can verify banking information and things like that. And in other countries, it doesn't work the same way. They don't have the same banking standards we do. And that's our job. That's why we're the sales house, is because we have to verify the buyers and make sure that they pay. And, that's where our value comes in, I think. But yeah, we're seeing a lot of people that are signing up from overseas, and really some random places too. I mean, it's pretty neat to see.
Okay. Well, it sounds to me, just to wrap up, that our brick and mortar in-person sales, they're here to stay, and those are great events to go to, whether it's up at Saratoga or whether it's at Keeneland, and OBS. Those are just great events to go to. But with the digital platform, I just wonder, do you guys think that's opened up a whole new audience of potential buyers and owners to our sport that, we will actually see some uptick in ownership in our industry?
Yeah, I definitely think that we're seeing that right now. I mean, it's a just from a credit perspective. I mean, we're approving people that have never bought horses at Fasig, like I said, and I think now those same people are wanting to participate in in-person sales, and they're asking us. It's kind of funny because they came in through digital, so now they're asking questions like, "Where do I find the vet report online?" And it's stuff that is an industry we've never thought of. We don't offer the vet reports online. Yeah. No, it's that you have to be at the sale to see them. But what they're doing is, they're looking at the pictures and videos online. They're comfortable buying online, and they want the same sort of conveniences.
Information.
Yeah, that they're buying through a digital sale. So yeah, I think it's helping everyone and bringing new people in, and not everybody's got a week and a half to fly to Lexington and come walk around the sales grounds. So now we're hopefully getting in new people that are going to participate from far away. I mean, we've seen it in every sector of business, whether it be housing, healthcare, banking, everything's online. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, okay. I would say that, Gary, just to close out my comments, I would say that the barrier to entry on digital platform is so much lower and so much easier for people. It's less intimidating. They don't have to, know exactly where they need to go. They don't have the credit aspect of it is much easier. They don't have to walk around. They don't have to be in an audience that they don't know, in a situation that they're uncomfortable with. And it just makes things a lot more comfortable, a lot easier, a lot more, attainable for a larger audience. I can tell you from our podcast audience that ever since the digital platform has been in place, it's expanded exponentially. I mean, we have people in here that are from literally four corners of the world that listen to our podcast and then go on to the digital platforms and at least look, if not, get involved and possibly bid. So I think it's a great entree to our industry for people for all those reasons.
Okay. Conrad, Cormac, any final thoughts? All right.
Go ahead, Conrad.
All right. Go ahead.
I mean, I agree. I think it's the digital sphere, as we've all touched on, is a growing space, and there is ease of function and ease of entry, and whether it be through the digital space, or the Netflix show. You've got there's a great feel to our industry right now. I think there's a lot of positivity, and I think the next 4-year forecast for both our industry and our sport looks very positive, and it's exciting times ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll just follow up just to say, I think, collectively around the industry, but here also at Keeneland, everything we do is to try to grow the sport. It's to try to put this sport, because it's the best game in the world. The storylines, the horses, everything. It's just, it's a really unique industry and experience, and we all collectively try to bring that to more TV screens, more eyeballs, more computer screens, whatever it is. So that's something we'll continue to strive to do.
Okay, well put. So that wraps up the Q&A. So audience, if you have any follow-up questions for today's speakers, we're going to put up on the screen their names and email addresses so you can contact any of them if you have any follow-up questions or you're looking for more detail. And if you don't have time to jot this down, just remember we have these recorded, and I'll send out an email in a day or so when the recorded version's available, and then you can easily go to this screen to get their contact information. So I'd like to thank our panelists for your time, your insights. We've been at this for an hour and 15 minutes, and I'm sure we could probably keep going on. So really do appreciate your time, your insights, and just the information you're willing to share. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary.
Welcome.
Also,
Thanks
like
for
to thank our sponsors, Centennial Farms and Walmack Farm, and but mostly really like to thank the audience for being here, and to all owners for investing in our sport. While we have many stakeholders in the industry, it's always been my belief that owners are the most important and needed participant in our sport. So we'll be back in September with another online webinar, but until then, enjoying the remaining summer, stay safe, and we hope you visit the Winter Circle and you visit it often. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.